that we had is about how to support people to get started. So there's the training element that we're thinking about, but also people have spoken on other platforms about, I'm going to get the language wrong now, chat boxes that enable you to have a conversation, or is it about putting videos? I think the idea of a template, so that question up there that says about a template, I think that's pretty clear that having something to hang it on would be really helpful. But supporting people, or even if you were doing it yourself, would you want a little
paperclip?
Yeah, a little piglet, was that?
Paperclip.
Oh, paperclip. Sorry, I don't know where I got piglet from. But little like a chat box, or would it be that we're intending this anyway of doing videos that kind of talk through Worcester Life Stories and what you're doing? But I guess we just wanted to think about supporting people. I don't know, what do you think? I'm going to stop that because it's meant to be a question.
I would say asking people what's important to them at the start, whether it's to think about places they've been to or people they've met in their lives. And if it's people they've met, maybe then, given their permission, they can tap the contacts on their phone to see who else has created a life story and connect.
So hold on to that then, Ilse, because I think that's in the social element that really hits there. But if you were an older person and it's harder to get online, or Sammy, in terms of in a care home, you know, if there's training available, but there's not, you know, it's outside of, would having videos on the platform be most helpful, or having a slightly more interactive, you know, those things?
A combination of both would be great.
A combination of both.
Yeah, because I think certain ages and obviously certain abilities, they get bored really easily. So watching something, they will just, you know, they'll be disengaged at some point if there isn't some kind of interaction with it. And you can sit and talk through it, but they will just sort of wander off, really.
Yeah. So something slightly more interactive is going to be really important from your perspective. Thank you.
Definitely.
Coming back to the idea of objects as well, we have obviously got our links and museums and institutions.
Yes, yeah.
So there may be opportunities there to actually have a sort of physical object that you can look at. The other thing
is that the suitcase project,
and the suitcase stories would feed into that as well. The other thing that I would say is that to identify an object with images, again, is something that we've been looking at as well. Yeah. So things like, you know, the Bovril adverts in the shop window, the particular make and model of car. Cars come up a lot, actually. Yeah. People are always talking about it.
Well, do you know, I did that because when I was thinking about our workshop, my first car was a little Fiesta, T-Road Fiesta. Anyway, enough about me. The bit that was kind of being said in terms of that training, though, that I think is really helpful for us to think about is what you were saying there, Sammy, in terms of it being interactive. I was thinking for everybody else in terms of, I don't want to put people on the spot, but can I just have a raise of hands of actually it's kind of a multi-option that we need to think about, like Sammy was saying, perhaps something that says, can I help you, as well as a video, and the training sessions is going to be, or not sure, maybe that's something to, sorry, so is that a raise of hands to agree or a comment?
To agree, really, but maybe it could be voice activated rather than it being a chat bot.
Right.
I'm going to have to slightly calm the scope down here. These are all wonderful ideas. You know, there's a certain amount of voice activated stuff one can do because it's built into the operating system of some phones. But you know, I think these things are great, and having sort of interaction is fantastic. But trying to build something like a chatbot, which is responding to questions answered in lots of different ways and being able to guide people through is quite a tricky thing to do.
Well, not if you use Alexa, or you can get an integration.
Well, yes, and then you have to write a native Alexa application and hook into the Alexa. There's going to be an Alexa integration for it, and you're still writing the conversation. In fact, so we have looked at these. So I mean, it's not one of those. I'm not sort of saying absolutely not, but we need to bear in mind that there's a certain scope to this, and we would be in danger of spending so much time trying to scope the chatbot to help people along that in fact we wouldn't be building the actual platform. But it's a really cool idea.
I think sometimes, and we talk about it later, this will be the kind of idea stage, and I did joke about it right at the beginning, but it was being genuine. That Chris, we've had conversations after, before, in terms of what the scope is. Perhaps it is just about saying, okay, what would be most helpful, and then what would it actually look like, and what's our priorities? Alice, what?
I was just going to say, I think it's important to remember that one size doesn't fit all. A chat option would be really good, but equally, if it came up, I'd be the sort of person that'd go, no, I'm ignoring that. I'm happy to fumble my way through it and kind of go and explore. Some people like that, and other people like to be kind of talked through each individual step. So I suppose a multi option would be really helpful.
Thank you. I think that's one of the reasons for asking, isn't it, Chris? Is because we're all different, and we are trying to think about the people that we're working with and for, in terms of what's going to be most effective. So
I mean, I think there's lots of quite cool things one can do that are totally doable. I mean, obviously I'm a man, so I don't bother reading the instructions, but there are things like being able to highlight particular buttons in an order that you do things, and sort of giving instructions that way. So you're showing people where to do things at the same time as you're showing them the sequence of doing it. I think that little animated explainer videos of maybe a minute, no more, but a sort of kind of animated showing kind of how things fit together, those are very useful and relatively swift to put together as well. So there's lots of those kind of paradigms which are fairly well known. And as you say, it's about variety. And I think that provided you can explain how to do things very, very quickly, and of course that depends on being able to really keep the interface simple and progressive, so that it's so you can explain it quickly and easily.
Thanks very much, Chris. And sorry, Alice, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that I suppose there's an element of frustration if you can't get to where you want the end point as soon as possible. Then people just get frustrated and go, no, I can't be bothered. So actually, the quicker people can get to that end point is really important, I guess. So simplicity is ideal.
Great.
Can I just say thank you to everyone, because just hearing what we're saying is it's hard, isn't it? When you're co-producing, in terms of thinking about what it will look like, and the number of options out there is I agree with everyone. We'll really how to make it so you can use it. That would be, it'd be such a shame to get to the end and people don't. So it will be good post this workshop to think about all those different ideas and kind of what comes up most, and sharing with everyone. Is that okay?
Yeah.
In terms of the I guess one of the things now that co-produced, and then I'm going to be transparent in, the research tells us that a life story that is a video is potentially more powerful than even a book. And I think, like people just saying, it's going to be really individual, isn't it? But it was just getting a sense of what do people think about having a video. We've talked about potentially in terms of personalising the life story. Does that feel a good thing to be thinking about? I've got nods there. And one of the things that I guess we'd wondered about, and it comes back to your point in terms of it going social, is that there may be some bits of my life story that I want to put out there in terms of chapters, and there may be some bits that I don't. And actually, if it's in, potentially, what people have said about events, I might want to share some of my life story. There might be the events, the big events of my life, but there might be more personal things that I don't. I think that's what we talked about, Chris, wasn't it? That potentially you can separate it and then share. Does that feel, you know, something worthwhile to consider? Sorry, Alice.
No, I was just going to say, if the people wanted to share it on social media at some point later on down the line, certainly from experience, videos and even images get a lot more interaction than just plain text. So actually that would benefit later on down the line before we've even got to that point, I guess. So just to keep that in mind.
No, thank you for that. Show of hands at that bit in terms of that being the most, that would be helpful. And I'm glad that you've done that. Sorry, Sammy, did you have a question there? No. You always have to be careful about putting hands up. Okay, so this one, moving to the social element, my question was, would a social media chat or some sort of interaction be worthwhile, or a space? This came up last time. Feels like it's a resounding yes. Is that fair? Yeah. Sorry, Andy, were you going to, because obviously you'd started to talk about, and I said hold that thought for you and Ilse in terms of some of the things that you were thinking about, but there's something about perhaps actually being able to share your life story, which would be really worthwhile.
What sort of things were you thinking about for me there, Tash?
Well, I think now it will teach me for saying hold on to. I said hold on to those points.
It's got out of my brain now. What are you thinking?
I was thinking about what people. You made a really valid point about you might not want to share everything. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess there's two sides, isn't there, from that? I mean, you hinted at the other thing where we're a part of a group developing a patient portal, which and some of the sharing of life stories would be really helpful as some sort of clinical resource. So there's something about people being able to share that would be enormously helpful, I think, in helping professionals, and particularly with someone with dementia who may have lost capacity, to learn more about their lives and to understand them and understand why they might be doing certain behaviours that it might seem strange, but actually completely understandable in the context of their lives. So that ability to share could be enormously helpful from a clinical perspective. But I guess I was sort of commenting earlier more sort of personally, really, just sort of just that interest of, exploring things and, how that relates to other people's, sort of history, local histories, really. And I guess in my mind, I wasn't quite clear whether Life Stories Network is about making stories, or is it in itself a kind of encyclopedia resource that you don't have to create a story if you don't want to, but you can just explore what people have put up in terms of local history. Because I imagine there's lots of really interested local historians, amateur, which are just interested in stuff. And so I guess it's, do you then have histories of places rather than individuals? So I wasn't quite sure the extension of the project, really, and
no, that's the life packs and know your place, isn't it?
Yeah, really, that's when know your place comes in. So the Know Your Place will be an ever-growing sort of evolving resource. Initially, it will be those historic maps, but then we've got a collection of 35,000 historic photographs from the 1950s all the way through. And those are sort of, they'll be geographically searchable, but also thematically. All of those sort of subjects that we've been talking about today, we're going to try and capture that. In the description, so that that's searchable in that way. So yeah, that's very much a local history, archaeological kind of family history resource for people to delve into at their leisure, really, and then feeding into the Life Stories platform as well.
Yeah, in terms of the life packs, into the packs. I guess the bit that I thought potentially did sound exciting and would be good, I can see Sammy's had to go, is that bit that you were saying of people actually being able to draw the images. Oh, sorry, but I had a face shield on then. to draw their stories from Know Your Place or Upload, but potentially have a social element where they could share their whole story. I'd not thought about that, because that, going back to the person that I know a few people where they've printed off their books, but actually you'd have an interactive, I want to share my whatever part of my story with you. That might be, I was thinking about the street parties or whatever it is. Oh, sorry, Ilse, was that your suggestion?
No, I'm not sure. I was just going to add to yours when you were finished.
Okay, no, add it now. I'm kind of saying the same. Whoever's, it wasn't my suggestion. I was just saying what a great suggestion, really.
I was going to mention something about the possibility of people contributing to the life stories of others, particularly where someone has lost capacity, like Andrew mentioned before. So say my partner was unable to continue recalling their life story, I could then get access and do that for them and document the, later stages of their lives on their behalf.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think that the sharing is quite interesting because I think that Andrew expressed some doubts about whether he wants to share his life story. I think lots of people like to try and they like the idea of being remembered in some way. If it's life story. So I think that there's a need to share. After all, that's why Facebook is so incredibly popular, isn't it? But we like to share what we can with people we choose to share it with. So I think one of the things that Tash and I were talking about was whether you share your whole story or whether you can share an edited part of it. So, for instance, here's my life story about my school and the great times I had at the football matches, but I'm going to leave out the part I spent. Here's a picture of my cell in Pentonville prison. Those kind of things. We like to gloss our lives a little bit, we'd allow people to do both of those things. And I think then there's another dimension: is that do you let them share them? Do we want people to share them entirely publicly, i.e., that they can go paste them on other social media items, or have them as kind of example case studies on the site where people are not logged into it, or just share it with my connection on Worcester Life Stories, which I think also there's a whole level of ways of sharing. And I think one of the interesting ideas would be to ask everyone, would you share your life story? Would you first share it with just selected people, or would you have it as a generally public thing? It's attitudes to private data, isn't it?
Yeah. Before we come to you, Andy, I was looking at Sammy there. Catherine, can we make sure that we really capture that question? Because sharing has come up a lot, and then how we think about that. Sammy, I was just thinking in terms of, we said about the video. So when Sheena and I do the video that we can send out, really, so just so everyone's aware, Chris is the developer for Worcester Life Stories. That's why he's reining me in on some of these, to make sure that we ask that question just in terms of what it looks like. And I guess
one of the things from a care home perspective is about consent.
Yeah.
So we could be using the platform as a one-to-one tool, and it may stimulate something and they get a photo out or something like that. It would be difficult if the person doesn't have consent to actually post that. We just wouldn't be able to. That's the thing, and it would be a shame. But I really think we not even. The way we could get around it is maybe getting the family members involved. Yeah. And if they wished themselves to post it, but we as a care home would not be able to.
Absolutely. I think that the way I see it is that the life story by default is belongs to you. It's something for you to look back on, or whatever. But I think that one of the things that definitely have been going around in my head is about how we. I think Ilse said about posting something onto someone else's life story, but also being able to say, well, these are my relatives and they can have access, and they can, as you said, it's like getting the family's consent. But it might even be that you're helping people to build life stories, but also that the family member might be building a life story on behalf of their father or whomever. And I think that's quite an interesting, and again, it's quite a unique way to be able to think about things, because I think that's required.
So, sorry, thank you, Chris. Were you going to add something as well?
I guess I'm sort of just thinking about some of those ramifications of how you share, because it makes me think, what would stop a child or creating a sort of rather negative life story about someone they disliked at school and posting it on there as someone else? So I don't know where I'm coming from. This it's just, you see lots of stuff on the media. How can you? I guess it's like, how do you, if you're going to post stuff, how would you ensure that, or would you have some moderating function going, actually, that's what someone's posted isn't very nice, so we'll have to take that down. Whereas if it's individual, then you don't have to do that, do you? Because it's just your own. Do what you want with it. But there's this other thing about having a public space then, isn't it? Then it becomes more like some of these forums where you have to have moderators and you have to have guidance over usage. And there's a whole range of different stuff that could go on that you then have some responsibility over, isn't it? So I don't know, I've just come up with some sort of things off the top of my head, but I don't know, it's just interesting, isn't it? When you think about the potential, how safeguards, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess just so we don't take all the time on this, maybe based on, I think one of the things that we're talking about is life stories allow connections. And if you were sort of, because Sammy, you were going to talk, and it would still be great to hear in terms of what you already do. And you said, just in terms of the benefits of working with people in life stories, is there is someone using their life story and consent to share for perhaps supporting healthcare, or like the lady that I was saying about who printed off all her books. We really need, as you say, to give a lot more consideration to the social media aspect. And I think it was, as people were saying, it's more in a contained, closed platform is what we were thinking about. Is that fair? Chris, I can see you put yes, really like that idea, Ilse, but I haven't.
It's one about prompting people for important things. Where you're at this wedding, did you also drive a car like this? Those kind of prompts. I really like that. Anyway, yes, I agree. I think that initially, certainly, we'd try and keep it on the closed platform. But Andrew's point about actually we're not. How do we make sure that it's not just a bunch of kids sitting registering, pretending to be people and assaulting each other? That's and we don't really want to have to go into trying to prove people's age is an absolute git. I tried to do it in a site 6-7 years ago. So we do need to think about these kind of things, and sharing does open up these difficulties. But I think it would be a shame not to at least consider it.
Yeah, because you can't have you need the whole point of the life story is that you either it's a printed off book, or you're doing it as a video. I think it's more that interactive, the like and the social media element there. And Sammy, I think some of the things that you've raised from a care home perspective, we can then think about that in terms of a bit more closely about how we do this. And Chris, you're right, it's conversations that we've already had about who signs up for it and how you moderate it. So in terms of for Know Your Place, you have a verifier, don't you, before any content can be uploaded. Is everyone okay if I park that? It feels, in some ways, it feels one of the most interesting, but just in terms of time, I think we've got about 20 minutes left, and we may be able to come back to it. It'd be a bit ashamed to miss some of the. Sorry, is there
can I also just double check that what's being written in the chat is being captured? Does that get captured? That's okay. I'm just aware that also you put some really good points there in the chat. And there's quite a lot in there, so I don't want us to lose that. I know you spotted that, Chris.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the bits I like out of it.
That's not how it works, remember?
I'm not copying the names, it's fine.
Yeah, what was I going to say? Because I can't see it, I only caught the one bit in terms of does somebody wear the trousers, which seems an interesting part of a chat to capture. But just in our last 20 minutes, and I'm sorry because I know we haven't spoken properly to the sharing, and I think that's because it requires bottoming out some of the things that we're talking about. So I think we can come with more questions and ask feedback. But I don't want, we've got 3 other areas, that I at least want us to acknowledge before our time runs out, if that's okay. Not that WebEx kicks you out, but just in terms of keeping to time. Sheena, do you just, I've put on here, have you seen our great quizzes by you? Would you just like to talk a little bit about them for those who may not have seen them?
Yeah, sure. So at the start of lockdown, we decided that it was a good opportunity really to make use of the photographic collection that we had to really sort of give people something to chat about, you know, at home, isolated and that sort of thing. So I've created these weekly quizzes. It's just 10 historic photographs and selected, hopefully, to kind of cover different areas of the city, different interest areas, things that people, you know, may recognise, set to questions. And they've been hugely popular. So we're getting an average of between 2,000 and 3,000 participants a week on those quizzes. At the peak of lockdown, I think we had 5,500 people take part in one of them. So they've been hugely popular. And what's been great about them, obviously, it's lovely that we're getting all those people participating, but it's the kind of conversations that are going on around them via social media. So there's been lots of sort of people saying, "Oh, do you recognise that photo, Sandra?" You know, and that's your mum, isn't it? And sharing the image, and you know, so there's been all of that going on around it. So it's been just a really valuable tool, really, for, well, firstly, as I say, sort of giving people something that sort of brings them together, but also it's given us a bit of an insight into what works and what's of interest and what subject matter has been popular for people. So yeah, and that's obviously something that we can make available beyond you know, just that week. The quizzes are there, but they could potentially be made available via the platform if that was something that people wanted.
Yeah, so when we're Jean, I think your video's off. I've only just noticed. So just thinking, and Sammy, Sammy, you've just said, how can I access? Because Platform Housing had said the same thing, that actually Sheena does it online at the moment, and what they ask for is that ability that you could go on to Worcester Life Stories, click it, potentially download them, and then distribute or do it online, depending on what was better. They are brilliant. They've been really. Sammy's asking about how she can access now, so we could probably talk to you afterwards in terms of setting that up. Right.
Yeah, that'd be great. It can just be so difficult to try and stick to a time.
Yeah.
You know, in a care home setting, everything is time related, because there's breakfast, there's lunch, there's dinner, there's activities going on. And it is hard to sometimes introduce a new activity because they're quite set in their ways on, you know, what they want to do. But, you know, I actually didn't realise that they were going on. So I didn't really check times.
No, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? We some of it is about how you get the word out there and kind of share it. And hearing you say you didn't know, we can think about Greg. Still there, aren't you? How we can get that through to everyone like Sammy in terms of doing that right now, and then just thinking about the how that would fit on the platform. So I guess.
And there are a couple of things there as well. We've obviously got all of the links from the previous quizzes that have happened. It's refreshed each week on the website, so that changes it once a week, and I'd send out a notification about that. We've also got the content from our launch event, so we've got video content of a longer, more interactive quiz that we could provide as well. So there's a lot of content there, but certainly make available, Sammy.
Yeah. Shirley, you're laughing. I'll start picking on you if you're not careful.
You're on mute. Monopoly board, you're saying.
I was laughing at my game, sorry.
Oh, I like your idea of a personalised Monopoly board. This is where I look to Chris, is going to say no, it's not in the script.
No, it's fine.
No, all joking aside, I guess the reason for asking Sheena to do that and Sammy automatically saying, how can I access those? It feels like that would be a useful part of the platform in terms of the another way of interacting with the photographs. And are there, I guess this is the gaming and technology bit, is there anything else that actually in terms of the platform and putting it together, there's more? There is a wisdom monopoly board, yes, there is. Yeah. But so we can't really put theirs online. I think that might hit copyright and all sorts of issues. But is there anything else that people would be? Does that seem like a good use of the platform for the people that either yourselves or working with, or that we could? I'll do it as a hands up at that point in terms of. Is that something we should invest energy into? Yes, nods. Yeah, brilliant. If you were able to do it, if you were Chris and you were developing, what games or things would you be interested, or would you develop? You know, they'll all go quiet, and then after play, I don't know, solitaire. So you've just shared the quizzes information.
Yeah.
If there are, sorry, Sammy, were you going to say something? No. If there are things that
Saying thank you for sharing.
Oh,
welcome.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll get Greg on that in terms of being able to send out hard copies. I know Jan had asked for it as well, hadn't she?
I've sent that.
Great. If you've got ideas, or if there are things afterwards, then just let us know. Go in the Survey Monkey for the research, for the evaluation of the workshop. Haha. So just in terms of time, just moving us on slightly, and we can come back. And Sammy, I guess this fits with a little bit where you were going to talk a little bit in terms of memory lane and what you already do. Sorry, I've gone one too many.
Sorry. So yeah, for our memory lane residents, or actually for any resident that comes into a care home, and I'm sure we're not unique in this, we have a Getting to Know Me book, which covers all parts of their life really, and we try and add to it with memory boxes. So it's about asking those questions of, you know, where they grew up, what school did they go to, their likes, dislikes, so we can sort of structure life enrichment while they're in the home, because coming into a care home isn't the end of, you know, everything. It's just a new chapter. So we use this book to do that, and I just wondered if, and really the sort of your platform is a larger scale one of these books, as I see it, really, and one that is interactive now. So, you know, something they may put in there that they went to a particular school would then stimulate others on the platform to say, oh, I remember you at that school, and things like that. So so I'm really excited that this is happening, because it does sort of give us more of a tool when we're talking about filling in this book. You know, we can also get the family and loved ones that aren't in the care home maybe to add to it. So you know, if they post to there, we can link it, and I can just see so many different ways of using it, really, using the tool.
Just hearing you say that, I'm just wondering whether, if we're thinking about the kind of the social sort of element and possibility for a chat room or whatever, whether there might be an option to say share a specific record rather than something from someone's life story, a specific record from Know Your Place. So a photo of St Paul's School, that's a record on Know Your Place, but then that's a kind of prompt for people to discuss. So whether you do it in that way, sort of not coming out of a specific life story, but someone sees that record and goes, I wonder if anyone else knows or went to that school, and they pull it down directly from the Know Your Place resource.
I guess what we can do, hearing you say that, and what would be most helpful is the bit that we were talking about is, yeah, you're right, is putting it out to a wider audience and then thinking through some of the consent issues and how we do that and what would be most helpful. I have a feeling, I will remember I've got a face shield on, sorry, glasses slipped, that I can see it being a combination, but trying to, at the moment, we're really at that idea stage, aren't we? And Sammy, when you said you've got so many ideas, we need to capture those, because I don't want it to be what we think. It's for the people that are going to be sort of really using. And I know that I was coming from when I worked on the wall, but it's all those different ways. So the more that we can do that and share these workshops with people or the videos that Gina and I are going to do, the more Chris will be able to then give you what is really going to make a difference to people, because fundamentally that's what I want, is that bit that you were saying, it's a tool that enables you to go forward.
Oh, absolutely. And from our point of view, it's great to have lots of ideas right at the beginning so that we can work out, because it's much better to get everything straight and defined before you start developing anything, rather than trying to go back and hack things in, and that never works out as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I could maybe speak to the home and get a resident ambassador onto this, rather than having so many people within the home trying to add their bit to it. Maybe just get one user, a resident user, one I know of, who has been has grown up in Worcester, lived in Worcester, etc. So maybe get him to actually use it, to start looking at what you've done so far and, that you've posted so far, and get him to feedback, or via me feeding back.
Yeah, for me, with what you did before, and to everybody, I'm looking at Shirley. I'm not used to Shirley being so quiet, and Alice. Everybody knows somebody, and I guess we're coming as well from older people. But when I looked in the research, and I know people that support children that have been fostered and life stories have been done, potentially there are going to be different ways that people might use this, all within the same template. Can I add? I can see Chris's face at that point. Don't limit those. That's absolutely okay to ask more people, Sammy, because it was your feedback that we fed back to First One that had you enabled us to know that not everybody that we're thinking about is actually online. Because from the last workshop, what had happened is everybody said, I use online banking, and then you asked a selection of people, and nobody did. So it really enables you to not go down a track that tends to take you the wrong way. Is that okay? Because if we hadn't have known that.
Yeah, it's just, not every room has access. That it's generally at selected times. Some of the residents have their own iPads and computers and things like that, but whether they would automatically look on this platform, or we will need tools to stimulate them to do that, and they'll need to have a reason to do it. We send out a regular newsletter, so we can promote it in the newsletter. We can put it on our Facebook page to get family members maybe using it, and then that link and interaction can develop.
And this is where I think your kind of input into what goes into the life skills area will be really critical, because that's where the kind of the training packs and the kind of the sort of supporting materials will be to help people and enable people to make use of this as best as we can.
Yeah, definitely. Jen, you've got your hand up. Sorry if I've missed that. And obviously it says Jennifer, but Shirley referred to you as Jen. Is it okay for me to use Jen?
Yeah, it's fine. I just didn't know what to put in when I signed in, so that's fine. I know this is my first one, so apologies if it's come up previously, but just hearing some of these conversations, I like the idea of, getting ideas, input to life stories from different people, so family members and, important people within someone's lives. How would you decide whose is the right version? because there's a chance. I mean, I've had it in other projects where a person with dementia might say something which is completely real for them, but the family member goes, "That never happened," or "That's completely wrong." And I wouldn't want my memories, or what I think are my memories, being overridden by someone who knows the truth. And similarly, if you've got a family member providing information that I might not be able to remember at the time, I'm not sure how that would make me feel if suddenly that came up in conversation. Was like, oh, well, how do you know that? So I'm just wondering, is there a way to control what actually is your life story? I mean, I'm not against the idea of multiple people having input. I'm just wondering how that would work in practice.
No, that's a really good idea, thought, and I guess it hasn't been because no, it hasn't come up before in terms of what people are asking. What were you bearing in mind? You just said about other projects, and it's come up before. What have you found most helpful to feed back to us right now?
I suppose in some respects it's some form of training or way of helping the family members to understand someone's dementia, because I mean the project that I'm thinking of particularly, it was around creating poetry with people with dementia, and there was, there were great poems coming out of it, but the family members got really upset because, well, why have they written about that? Why is this poem come out? Because none of it is real. And I think it needs that level of what are we trying to achieve here and what's real for the person. So I think it is guidance and helping the care and the family members to understand someone's dementia. And I know this isn't necessarily dementia specific, the life stories work, but I think if you were intending to use it with people with dementia, there needs to be some help for family members around that side of things.
No, that is really, really helpful, and thank you for feeding that back. And I guess it goes right back to that personalisation in the beginning about how do we support people in terms of doing this, and sort of capturing that in terms of. Sorry, Sammy, were you going to say something?
No, I was only going to say it has to be a collaborative approach, and everyone, has to be on board, and nothing to be posted until all in agreement. Because again, as we went back to the consent side of things, and I absolutely get what you're saying, Jen, because many will create stories that they absolutely believe to be true. We've had conversations about black being white, and that she wore a red dress, but no, it's yellow. So yeah, but it has to be collaborative, and that's why I was saying about getting more exposure and more joint working with the family members, but nothing being posted until it's really all agreed.
And I think one of the things that, and I agree with you both, is that when we think in terms of the guidance that is there for the kind of This Is Me or the other projects that we've done in terms of creating a paper life story, what we're doing is moving it online. So I don't want to lose the learning that we know already in terms of bringing that, if that's fair, both, in terms of some of the ways that you'd be having those conversations and thinking about that and how you share it, and then how does that translate to an online platform. So does that make sense as I say that? In terms of, when you were saying in terms of already creating books and how that is shared and where it is shared and who decides that?
As I mentioned, those without consent, we wouldn't be sharing anything.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It would only come from a family member, if they decided to share.
Yeah.
I think the idea of sort of the differing, the contradictions in memories as well is one of those things where it's almost not a technology decision; it's a decision about what the object is. I mean, I think that let's say that we are wanting to help people with dementia. That so to some extent this is as you said, it might be collaborative. Ultimately, you know, if the person with dementia wants to believe the dress was red and not yellow, then you know, obviously the fact, you know, obviously whoever the legal person is will have ultimate say, I guess. But you know, I think one would hope that, you know, that the family might say, well, actually, it doesn't matter if they want to believe the dress is red. We'll find the dress was red. I mean, but that's not. It's almost not a technological question, is it? It's more about, you know, it's a person question, really, I guess.
Also, Chris, I wonder whether the use of the word share when we're talking about an online platform, because we've talked about social media, is slightly blurred between creating something that you kind of own versus sharing on a social media platform. And I think we really need to untangle that a little. Am I making sense as I say that?
Yeah, I totally get that. Indeed, I mean, I think that, you know, I think it's about the sort of priority, isn't it? That our primary purpose is to provide something that's going to help people with dementia, that's going to provide them comfort, and all of those other good things that we've talked about from the, you know, from certainly since I've been going into this project. You know, if the idea of sharing where you can actually, in some ways, connect to other people, or people wish to share their things, well, that has to be a really positive decision by them. The default has to be it is a one-to-one thing. And to say, if you haven't got someone who's giving consent, like, you know, the family, then it doesn't get shared. That's the simple. That's the default position as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that, because I think that that's potentially because share is such a it's quite, there's so many elements to that that we will bottom out before we go, you know, in terms of how it looks, and really kind of come back to that. We have one section left in terms of our time, which is my 1 minute. Can people hold on long enough? It's actually covering, but Alice, I can't, because you joined in so much at the beginning, and if there's anything that you wanted to add, or I've lost you, there you are, was about the sport. One of the things that has come up there is in terms of the different elements, and I think it was already spoken to earlier, but, you know, when I said to you, we didn't forget, and we have followed that up. In fairness, I think Catherine has, is it Brewing Club link? Athletics. Actually, a number of people were saying about sporting links, and I guess one of the things that we were looking at in terms of that last bit really was, we're thinking about our life packs, and it's kind of been mentioned throughout. So Glyn before had said about potentially reminiscence, and interviewing. This shows my memory now. I think it was a cricketer wasn't it, who retired, and sort of doing a 20-minute sort of section, and was that possible? And I guess what we were thinking about in terms of these life packs are that sports come up quite a lot, but is there anything else that we should be thinking about? Or so we'll continue to do this through the workshops, in terms of, obviously there are places, when Sheena and I first started this, and they are there, it was sort of K's had come up in terms, but as we come to the end of the workshop, are there other areas, or Sammy, you may be thinking, you know, these are kind of topics of information or themes that actually, if someone put this together, I could pick it up and run with it. I don't need to be an expert in this knowledge. Sorry, Chris.
In 20 years' time, it'll be, well, everyone's going to want, you know, just pictures of someone writing code.
Sorry.
So I was only going to say, I suppose one of the things, I think it was mentioned in the chat, is about fashion too. Fashion is a real stimulus, same as cars. Although I don't know if car shapes and things change as much as fashion does. And that sort of, I suppose, for me, being a bit younger than the people in the care home, I saw a revival of different fashions, you know, and I'm sure they did, but they'll probably remember when it first came out, when flares first came out, or, you know, even, you know, corsets or whatever. So I think fashions are really a nice one to talk about with our residents.
something that's come up a lot in the memories that people have been sharing with. For instance, one of the memories again on the shambles video is about the sort of heeled boots that one of the shops on the shambles sold, and that they don't after 6 to 12 months with completely impractical things, and knock top haircuts and flares and all of that, and those are things also that people pick up on again in the quiz photos. They go, oh, look at that, look at that dress that lady's wearing, or look at the shoes in that shop window. It's those sorts of things. They really do come up time and again. Yeah.
So fashion, sport, those are two. So if other things come up, do you know what? Just being honest, every time sports come up, and I said this to Chris, not play. Fashion, however, it's that I'd be right there, and it is seeing things come up, but it is personal, isn't it? So if there are things that people think actually this would be a really good kind of theme or subject, let us know. And yeah, it is about, okay, we're also thinking about what would that pack look like? Are we doing images, videos? What would kind of be most helpful? Shelley, are you typing there? No. Oh, she was. Pubs. Pubs would be a great theme.
Yeah.
It goes without saying.
Yeah. The Gaumont comes up time and time again. Yeah. The number of big acts that Worcester hosted in the 60s. In fact, Queen there was a support act and some other random local band at some point. But yeah, those sorts of things really do keep coming up.
Yeah. I'm really mindful of time, and Helen Bevan, who's the NHS Chief Transformation Officer, says that you should only be on a WebEx for half an hour before you have a break. I know I mention that every time, but for the people that have stuck all the way through, thank you very much. All we want to do now is do a thank you, and then just let you know when the next workshops are, if that's okay, if you can hold on 2 more minutes. Oh, and Chris, I did promise that you were going to say what we'd show next. So.
Okay, that's fine. I'm making this up as I go along. No, I mean, I think that the great thing about all of these workshops and the ideas have been thrown in, and so they match a lot of the ideas we already had talking amongst ourselves, I think. So for the next workshop, what we're wanting to try and do, at least part of it, will be looking at some wireframes or stuff that's worked up a little bit more aesthetically. So that we can go through certain a few kind of workflows, and see how things might look, so that we can see if they're engaging or there are things we need to change, or so we actually start to build out some interactive screens, as it were, and get people's feedback on that, and then we can we can give people a link to sort of play with it afterwards as well. And that's kind of what we're looking for next time. I'm hoping that by the time we come to the next workshop, we'll effectively have a full specification for the platform and be starting to do all the design work and all of those workflows. And then we can have big arguments about what sharing constitutes and that kind of thing.
No, it's a really, don't make me laugh, because it is a really valid point. And I guess I really liked how everyone kind of came back to it, is just making sure that it's a really great idea, but we don't lose that fundamental of it making a difference, just like you were saying, yeah. Sam, even when you came in. But safety is paramount in terms of that, absolutely. I can't wait for that next stage where we get to actually have a bit of a play upon this and actually start seeing it, because then it makes it more real. I don't know about anyone else. I'm quite a visual person, so we will do that. So for our workshop, it's on Friday the 20th of November, 2:30 by WebEx. It would be really great to have people there. And then I'm just going to let Sheena say in terms of the Know Your Place.
Yeah, so our next Know Your Place workshop, so the Know Your Place workshops are slightly different in that they're not the platform wasn't co-produced, we're sort of populating and tweaking an existing platform. But the next workshop, that will be on Friday the 6th of November, and we'll be looking then at the sorts of layers of information that we'd like to see included in that. What the sorts of again, some of the material from this workshop actually will feed through to that in terms of themes and that sort of thing. But we'll also be looking at some of the guidance material that will support that as well. So looking at the kind of notes and things that will help you to access that successfully and make best use of it. So hopefully it should be quite an interesting workshop.
Yeah. Can I just say thank you, everyone? We genuinely want this to be something that when it goes live, I think actually it hits what I wanted it to do, because otherwise it doesn't, you know, it just doesn't, you know, that's the premise really. So without all your input and saying, have you thought about this? You considered that actually this is something I'm worried about, you know, hearing. It's just great to have all of that. And Alice, we do love her in terms of coming. Thank you very much. And the link with it was the race course, wasn't it? It's just gone off. Yeah. For doing that, and where people bought their first items. Yeah, I still remember that. Going back to my car. So we couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for staying, and I'm sorry it's not in person, because at this point I'd be saying there's tea and coffee. So I hope we're ready to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Friday afternoon beers, surely.
Well, as we get off, I joke when I say I'm now looking at cakes. I will be having one. I hope everyone can grab one. Please fill in our survey in terms of the workshop evaluation. We can only get better with your feedback. And if there's anything else in terms of that you're thinking about the platform but couldn't say, or I didn't notice you, just drop us an email, or the contacts at the end for the worcesterlifestories@gmail.com, and we'll pick that up. So just oh, I don't know if anyone watches Michael McIntyre. He does the bit at the end. He's like, take care and stay safe. but take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.